Warning: some contents may be disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello everyone, so let me know what you guys think. Today, I decided to go to the park to get my walk in and be in nature. As I am pulling into the parking lot, there's a lot of cars, and as I'm parking, this guy walks in front of my car, so I stop for a moment to let him walk. Anyways, he clearly looked like he was walking to leave the park, and when I glanced at him, he was already looking back at me but continued to walk away. As I get out of my car, I'm walking towards the other way to a more secluded area by the park because I like to go sit in front of the lake where there's benches and clear my thoughts. As I'm walking there, I'm looking back to see if anyone is behind me, and there was no one. But as soon as I reach the bench and I sit down, I see the creepy guy from earlier that was leaving, walking up to me. I was in shock because that means he must have been following me while hiding, and this man and me were the only ones in that side of the park. I told myself don't panic. He comes up to me with a shaky voice and starts saying do I want a dream catcher because he can make me one out of this car wheel metal circle that he was holding in his hands, but he still wouldn't sit down. So I try to get him to engage more in conversation, and I ask him questions because in my head, like if I panic and try to run away, he might get violent because I don't know his intentions. He asked me for my number and I gave it to him because I was scared that he would take no as a way to harm me since there was no one else around on that side of the park. Anyway, after 5 minutes, I asked him why he came back because I saw him leave. And his reply was that the spirit told him to walk up to me. In my head, I was fearful, but I'm like, I know this is not happening to me right now. What the hell? Anyways, after I get him to talk about himself, I told him that I'm going to start walking back. He told me that he was going to walk back with me, and I was just like, okay. And as soon as I saw people, I sat at another bench, and he sat too. Then I told him that I was leaving, and he tried to run my way saying please call me. I just told him sure and I drove off. I felt like I had better chances in giving him my number and not panicking and getting him to engage because if not, I felt like he could have harmed me, and at that time, I didn't have my weapon with me. So, what do you guys think his intentions were? I'm still kind of shaky typing this, but in the moment, I had to act very fearless and laid back. My town has had an increase in crime in the past decade. The larger businesses shut down, and it left people either fleeing the town or large amounts of unemployed people. Unfortunately, there weren't enough social services to protect us. It started out as mostly non-violent crimes, break-ins, stolen cars, and a lot of shoplifting. And gradually, it turned into muggings, violent home invasions, kidnappings, gang and drug-related crime too. The police were overwhelmed with the amount, and some were allegedly corrupt. You could see the change on the bars of the windows and increased security on the houses. People didn't stay outside like they used to, and kids would rush home, and no one willingly walked the street at night. It was just too dangerous. It was never a wealthy town, but this was crazy. My story isn't about this directly. However, you need the background story to understand where I'm coming from and why this was normalized. So, There was a talk about finding new ways to protect us. The people decided to become the night watch to take a stand. They would patrol the streets at night, protect the peace, and keep the gangsters at bay. Honestly, I never felt safer with them out there. Some were too old to do anything, and the others? They weren't the sort of people you want walking around with weapons, considering that some were known to be involved in the crime themselves. They would routinely knock on the door to check to see if everyone was alright inside. Most, I believe, had good intentions, but some, not so much. And I'll call this one Ernie. He knocked on the door and asked if my family was okay, and I said yes, and I thanked him and told him good night. But he came around every single damn night to ask us. It was annoying, but I just tolerated it. One night, as I was getting ready for bed, I noticed someone peeking through the curtains. I screamed, and the face suddenly moved away. For once, I was actually grateful that the watch group was nearby, and I told them what happened. They looked around, but the creep had escaped. Proudly, they boasted about having driven them off. The next week, there were no issues. But every night, I made sure to close the curtains and the blinds to ensure that no one could see inside. But of course, the watch group knocked on the door to check in, and I noticed Ernie was there. One time, Ernie was hinting to wanting to come inside to double-check things if it was safe and to also come in for a drink. I told him that my kids and I were going to see their father tomorrow and I needed to be awake early for the long drive. Just a bit of context, my ex and I are divorced and I have 3 girls, all under 10. It was amicable. We were just different people and couldn't make it work, but he was still a friend. So yeah, going back to the story, I told Ernie no, and he left without saying anything, and I thought that that was it. But some time later, I heard a knocking at the window, and then someone was trying to open it, but it wouldn't open. Then I heard footsteps when they moved to another window to try it. My landlord hadn't really invested in bars on the windows, so I used a sturdy wooden stick in them to prevent them from being slid open, and thank God it worked. But I couldn't sleep a wink at all. The next morning, I checked the windows, and the paint had been scraped off where they must have used the tool. Drinking a double espresso to fuel me, I made the long drive to my ex's. We sat on the porch and I looked exhausted, so he offered to drive me back. I told him that I was okay. We chatted about this and that before the talk about my town came up. It was my hometown, so I have a connection to that place. But he told me that if I wanted to move to be closer and to be safer, he would help me out with finances. I thanked him. I told him that I would think about it, but seriously, I was considering it. I wanted the girls to grow up somewhere safe where they could go out and play. After we spent some time with our kids, we decided to head home since it was getting late. We made the drive back, and as I was about to park on my driveway, I saw Ernie was there. He was sitting on my porch with his gun. It was around 9 p.m., and none of the other watch group was there with him, and something in my gut told me to be cautious. My parents always taught me to listen to my gut instinct and not bother about being polite if necessary. I rolled down my window, waved hello, and then I pretended to have left my phone at my ex's place. I told him that I needed to go because I needed it. He looked angry, and he told me not to worry about it and that I can get it tomorrow since it's late. I just knew something was wrong, especially the way that he was looking at me. I whispered to the kids to stay inside the car. Then I rolled the window back up, drove around the corner at the nosy old lady's place, and I parked there. I knocked on her door. She let me in, and I told her what happened. She told me to keep this between us and, well, maybe the internet too, that Ernie was being kicked out of their group. He had been seen looking at women and young girls changing their clothing or using the restroom. My eyes widened, remembering those times when I heard someone by the window and that time when someone was trying to pry it open. She said that he also seems to have some sort of fixation on me. That scared the hell out of me, not just for myself but for my kids too. I then thanked her for her time, called my ex up, and asked if we could stay for the night. He let us and I drove back the long way. I briefly told him what happened before I crashed on the bed. Long story short, Ernie was charged since there were multiple reports about him, and the guard or the watch group, whatever the hell it was disbanded for good. I don't know the situation there now because I ended up moving to my ex's boring suburb, but the kids are happy that we're closer to their dad and they're more free and safer. You never realize how much privilege you have when it is safe for you to go to the park and let your kids play. One sunny afternoon, my sister and I decided to go shopping at the local market. It was a busy day with people bustling about, some kids running around, and the usual chatter filling the air. We were standing in one of the aisles checking out the fresh fruits and vegetables when I noticed a man walking past us. He looked at me in a way that felt a bit odd. His gaze lingered a moment too long, but I just brushed it off thinking that it was just my imagination. We continued shopping, heading over to the bakery section to pick out some bread and some pastries. Yet, there he was again, standing a few feet away, watching me. I really tried to ignore him, convincing myself that it was nothing, just a coincidence. But as we moved to the dairy area, he was still there, keeping his eyes fixed on me with an intensity that started to make me uneasy. He had a stern look on his face, like he was upset or something. I whispered to my sister about what was happening, and she suggested that we walk around the store to see if he would keep following us. We meandered through different sections, just pretending to browse, but sure enough, he trailed behind us, maintaining that unsettling stare at me. My heart began to race a bit, anxiety bubbling in my chest. It felt surreal, like a scene out of one of those crime shows on TV, but it was happening in real life, right there in the middle of our small town market. When we finally finished shopping, I felt a mix of relief and lingering fear. We decided to inform one of the store employees about the man, and a staff member was helpful and kind, offering to walk us out to our car just to ensure that we felt safe. They apologized for the situation and promised to review the security footage to report the suspicious behavior to the local authorities. Well, I don't really know what happened to that, but I was never contacted by police. The encounter left me with a strange feeling, a reminder of how quickly an ordinary day can take a turn. It was unsettling to realize that such things could happen even in familiar places. But I think no one ever thinks that these things happen to them. It's supposed to be just the other people, right? I later tried to share this experience online, hoping to alert others to be cautious and more aware. But let's just say that I ran into some challenges. The post was flagged and taken down by the moderators, who accused me of spreading false information, which was kind of frustrating. All I wanted was to make sure others would be more vigilant about their surroundings, especially in places where they normally feel safe. So instead, I'm sharing it here. Please stay safe, everyone. Back in my college days, I had a routine that I really liked. I would often go to this big library in the city to study, especially during exam time. It was a nice, quiet place, perfect for getting work done, even though the city outside was always busy and loud. There was one day, just like any other, when I went to the library with a friend to study for exams. After a few hours, I decided to leave early afternoon while my friend stayed a bit longer. I packed my stuff, said goodbye, and I stepped out into the busy streets. My mind was on my study notes and also what I would cook for dinner, so I didn't notice right away that someone was following me. Leaving the quiet library and stepping into the noisy city always felt a bit overwhelming, so I was distracted. But then I felt someone brush past me, closer than I liked, and I thought that it was just because the street was crowded. As I kept walking to the bus stop, I started feeling like someone was watching me. You know the feeling when you just sense it? To check without being too obvious, I took my phone and I pretended to look at messages, really just trying to see if someone was there. And sure enough, a man in his 40s was behind me. He looked odd with a limp and mismatched clothes, like a suit jacket with old sweatpants and worn out shoes. His eyes were locked on me, and it felt unsettling. I told myself that it was probably nothing, just a coincidence. So, I switched my bag to my other shoulder, feeling a bit on guard. But then he moved closer, walking right next to me. Even though the street was busy, it felt like we were too close. Almost like we were meant to be walking together. My uneasiness turned into real discomfort. When I got to the bus stop, my bus had just left. So I had to decide quickly what to do. I didn't want to wait there with him nearby, so I started walking to the train station a few blocks away, hoping that he wouldn't follow. For a moment, I felt relieved when he kept walking straight and didn't cross with me. I texted my mom about the weird situation, feeling a bit better. But then, out of nowhere, he appeared again. He ran out of an alley and ended up right in front of me. It startled me, almost making me trip. He kept looking back at me every few seconds, like he was playing some strange game. I felt nervous, just trying to get to the station quickly. When we got close to the station, he stopped and then turned to talk to me. He mentioned seeing me at the library, acting like we had some kind of connection. I ignored him, hoping that he would just leave me alone. But he kept asking questions, like where I was going and what bus I was supposed to take. Even though there were people around, it felt like we were isolated, and his voice was all I could hear. I knew that I had to get away without making a scene, so instead of running, I went into a nearby cafe. I found a seat near a group of people, hoping that their presence would make him go away. And watching from the window, I saw him hang around outside for a bit before he eventually left. I stayed in the cafe for a while, calming down, before finally heading back to the train station when I was sure that he was gone. I got home safely, but I couldn't shake the feeling that he had watched me in the library for a long time before following me. Last year, around the time when winter was changing to spring, I had this creepy experience that still freaks me out. It was a quiet Saturday night, about 1 a.m., and I was comfy on my couch. I was wrapped up in a TV series when suddenly I heard the wooden steps outside my door creak. I thought it was probably just a neighbor at first, but then I realized that it was too late for anyone to be coming and going like that. Curious and a bit worried, I muted the TV to listen better. The sound of the footsteps was clear, moving slowly toward my door. My heart did a little jump and I just sat there, unsure of what to do. The footsteps stopped and then I heard the door handle jiggle. Panic hit me because I was alone and my neighbor wasn't home either. My apartment door has a half-glass window, which means you can't really see out unless you're right up close. The inside light was on, making it impossible for me to see outside, but whoever was outside could possibly see me, and I felt so exposed. In a hurry, I turned off the light, trying to see who was there, but as I did, I heard someone start banging on the door, really loud and frantic. It was scary, and each bang was matching my heartbeat. I backed away from the door, and thankfully, it seemed like whoever it was left too. I tried looking out of the window to see if I could spot them, but the way the building's set up, it blocked my view. I was feeling frustrated and scared, so I called the police. They showed up very quickly, but of course, the person who was banging on my door was no longer there. They still checked the place and then took my report. It felt safer with them there, but as soon as they left, the empty feeling and fear crept back in. After that night, I took steps to protect myself. I bought a can of wasp spray for each room, just in case, but the fear stuck with me day and night. Later, I got a security camera that connected to my phone, hoping that it would help me relax a bit. As months went by, life went back to normal. But then, little things started to bother me. Like every morning, I'd find my car's license plates bent at a weird angle. I would fix them and tell myself that it was nothing. My dad thought maybe the car wash was doing it, so I tried not to think too much about it. One day, I came home to find some strange items on my porch, a couple of crystal bowls and a flower pot with a golden retriever on it. At first, I thought my sister or grandma left them as a surprise, but neither of them had done it. I wondered if it could have been my mom. She usually leaves things at her own place though and not mine. Plus, my camera was dead when this happened, which felt a bit too coincidental. But then it happened again. Another late Saturday night, just after 1 a.m., the banging on my door came back. The lights in the apartment were on, so whoever it was knew that I was home. My phone was across the room, out of reach, but I managed to message my sister from my laptop, and she called the cops for me. I watched them arrive and shine their flashlights around before I opened the door to talk to them. And after filing another report, I decided to sleep at my sister's place. I felt someone was messing with me intentionally, knowing exactly when to do it, like when my camera wasn't working. I just couldn't figure out why this was happening. I didn't have any enemies or old relationships that ended badly. Most of my social interactions were pretty new, just a few coworkers and family. But this whole thing reminded me of a stalker that I had years ago. A middle-aged guy who used to bother me until I got a restraining order. He had moved away, or so I thought. Whether these incidents are connected or just a series of weird things, I really can't say. About 8 years ago, when I was just 15, I went through something that still gives me chills today. Back then, I was really into a certain style, Dark clothes, colorful hair, and all that stuff. Most of my friends were in it too, and we would spend our days hanging out at a skate park near the edge of town. It was our spot where we felt free and cool even during the summer heat. One particularly hot summer day, I noticed a guy standing off to the side by himself. He looked to be about 19 or so, much older than us. He didn't skate, and he just watched from a distance. I figured that he was just admiring the tricks or maybe too shy to join in. But then, he showed up again the next day and the next. He started asking my friends about me, which was strange because I didn't know him at all. I shrugged it off, thinking maybe he was just awkward and meant no harm. But then things started to get weird. One afternoon, as I was heading home from the park to the bus stop, I had this nagging feeling that someone was following me. I glanced back and I saw the same guy trailing me. He was keeping a fair distance but always within sight. I texted my friend who was still at the park, asking him to meet me. And as I reached the corner to wait, I saw the guy standing back, half hidden, watching me talk to my friend. My friend whispered, asking if I knew that I was being watched. I nodded, feeling both uneasy and a bit exposed. This wasn't just a one-time thing. He began showing up more often, popping up unexpectedly at places that he shouldn't have been. One evening, I called my dad to pick me up from the bus station, nervous about walking home alone. And sure enough, the guy was there again, lurking in the shadows, peering around the corners to watch me get into the car. It was like something out of a bad movie, but it was happening to me. Another time, while I walked through the town center after the shops have closed, I saw him coming from the opposite direction. I thought he passed by, but when I turned to check, there he was, pretending to look into a closed shop window. And as soon as I started walking again, he turned and began following me. My heart raced. I ducked into one of the few open stores, which was a large supermarket, and I stayed there until I felt that it was safe. The last time I saw him was the most intense. I had just gotten out of a late study session at the library, and I was rushing to catch the last bus. As I climbed on board and the door shut, I saw him running, trying to catch the bus before it pulled away. He was looking through the windows, clearly aiming for the driver to stop and let him on. And thankfully, the driver kept going, and as the bus picked up speed, I watched the guy fade into the distance. These encounters scared me enough that I stopped hanging out at the skate park together. I even drifted away from my friends, partly due to fear, and partly because I couldn't shake the feeling that this guy was fixated on me. As time passed, life went on, and I moved to a different part of town, with a new school, new friends, and a fresh start. The fear eventually faded, but the memories stayed with me. Those intense moments taught me to be more cautious. Now when I look back, I realize how lucky I was that nothing worse happened. And I just hope that that creepy guy at the skate park never found someone else to follow. And here's the riddle for this video. Hey everyone, this is your creepy sister. Thank you so much for watching the video. I do hope you enjoyed it. Also, don't forget to leave a like and a comment. It really helps the channel out. A big shout out to both my channel members and Patreon members. Thank you so much for taking your support to the next level. You guys are great. And again, to everyone, stay scared because your fear feeds me.